The woman's dark eyes were too soft for him to trust himself with. Julian was no stranger to guarding himself around women who might seek to find themselves in a compromising position with an heir to a fortune, but this was different. Violet's looks weren't of the trapping sort, but were the kind that disarmed for all their promised safety, tempting one to relax, and that was dangerous. If he wasn't careful, he'd forget himself and say something he would regret. He could feel it in his bones with the way she drew him to her. He cleared his throat. "I'm sure through the summer, possibly longer if the area suits me." "You won't find our little town lacking for entertainment?" Violet asked, scribbling in the ledger book the boarding house used to record guests. He smiled, finally moving his gaze to meet hers, and felt his heart squeeze. "No, I expect I'll have plenty of entertainment on account of my sister and her family." Violet beamed at him, and Julian felt himself go warm at her sunny expression. The coronary squeeze became nearly unbearable at the weight of such an expression. "Shayla is gorgeous. You must be very happy to have such a perfect little thing in your family." Damn it all. He'd been right about the ochre in her eyes. He nodded, looking away from her. "Quite. Maman is overjoyed by the new addition. I expect to be spoiling her entirely rotten by the time I return to New York." "Of course." Violet shut the book and picked up a key. "It's your right as her uncle." Julian cracked a smile, steadfastly avoiding looking Violet in the eyes again, and instead focused on the key in her hand. "My responsibility, I suppose." "One might say a sacred duty, even," she said, coming around the desk to stand beside him. "Ah, yes. The age-old tradition of spoiling a sibling's progeny until they are ruined to the core. A time-honored tradition, and we Baptistes are nothing if not sticklers for tradition." She was close enough now that he could smell the faint scent of rosewater, sweet and light as the laugh that slipped from her mouth at his joke, sweet and light just like her. Or rather what he supposed she was, Julian reminded himself. He didn't know this woman, even if it was like something had woken up inside him the moment their eyes had met. Like lightning it was, electrifying every part of him that had been put to sleep by the city and constraints of polite society. The shell around him had cracked, that perfect facade he kept in place that showed how unbothered he was by everyone and everything around him had splintered with a simple hello. And the mad thing was, Julian did not hate it. Julian could think of only one time he'd ever heard anyone describe meeting anyone like that. His father and mother. He swallowed hard and took another half step away from Violet, aiming to maintain his distance. It was only proper, no matter how much he wanted to walk closely to her as if they were familiar, not strangers newly met, but intimate. His skin flushed hot at the thought, and he bit back an angry groan at himself for letting his mind get away from him. Again. What was he? An untried boy in his first season? "Are you all right?" Violet asked, stopping to look at him strangely, and Julian knew he had almost been found out. "I'm quite all right. Better than, in fact." "But just then?" She pointed at him and tilted her head to the side, the movement causing her dark hair to slip over her shoulders. Julian's fingers itched to see if her hair was as soft as it looked. He clenched his fingers together for a second before he shoved a hand into his pocket. "Just then?" he prompted with as guileless a look as he could manage. Violet blinked at him. "You growled," she informed him. "Ah, that," he said, and chuckled, turning away to examine a painting on the wall as if the watercolor landscape were the most captivating art he'd seen since the Louvre. "That was a cough." "A cough?" Violet's brow furrowed. "Are you unwell?" It's a small condition I have," Julian said. One that apparently only took him when he was struck